Hey, everybody. Super exciting topic today with Salt Security's mission is to make APIs attack proof. And really excited to have Roy on the discussion today. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. We're in the thick of it here in 2024. And I'm really intrigued by this topic. Maybe talk about your founding mission and vision at Salt Security and how it's evolved over the last few years.
Absolutely. So when we started the company, basically the premise was that uh, as you look at the world, and we saw it already 8 years ago, we saw how every company becoming a SaaS company, the world becoming more and more digital. The movement of microservices, the things that we want to do everything online in every aspect of our life, everything becoming smart and automated. And we saw APIs as the glue to all these communication. So essentially, we are seeing ourselves from a vision standpoint is to ensure that every digital communication is secure at all times, where APIs are at the center and the connecting tissue of all of these systems that carry all of our data, you and me and everyone else across all these companies and systems. So this was the premise to really start a company that can actually solve this problem as it's becoming just bigger and bigger. The more we are innovating, the more that we are getting the world is getting more digital. These problems just continuously growing, and with AI and generative AI, it's actually going to exponentially grow over the next couple of years here.
Yeah, the API economy is in full swing. And discuss your approach. There are many different approaches to uh, building security into APIs and protecting them, but what's unique about Salt and its approach?
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, let's talk about API security for a second, because API security is a very large term, right? So first of all, define what we consider API. For us, API is anything that carry data from one system to another over any type of HTTP and the likes protocols, right? So it's very broad. People tend to think about APIs as this API we document and expose for someone to consume. The reality is it's every mobile app, every web app, every microservices, every system-to-system
Mm,
integration. The majority, there is a stats in the research that shows that over 83% of the internet traffic is actually API traffic. So it's the majority of the communication is really APIs. So this is the scope we're talking about, right? And for starters, there is phases of how you're going to reduce your API risk, right? Because you can't boil the ocean. You need to
mm,
crawl, walk, run, right? So the crawl from an API security standpoint is to discover APIs. The more we are innovating faster through generating microservices, using AI to automate or generating code quickly, what happened is that the time to develop an API, new API, used to be months or weeks. Now it
mm,
can be as fast as minutes, and with AI, it can be seconds, right? So it's the majority or the number of APIs is grew tremendously, which created a security problem because APIs are popping up everywhere in environments, and security
mm.
teams have a hard time falling and finding all these unmanaged APIs. So I know it's a cliche, but it's true that you can protect what you don't know. So the first part, the call part, is you need to discover all your APIs. You need to have continuous discovery. It's not a one time. It's an agile world that APIs that keep popping up can be every day, every week, every month.
Mm.
And a need to have deep discovery. Means you need to understand what data going in and out. You need to be able to classify it. So visibility is in-depth visibility. So that's the call part. The walk part is posture governance. What does that mean? As you have more and more APIs being released to production by developers, uh, it's kind of like the kind of the wild west, right? They're pushing a lot of APIs that expose very critical information of companies, and security teams needs to have the way to govern their security standards on API before and after they're being published to production, right? What type of authentication they have, critical APIs that expose specific sensitive data to companies, what type of security controls you want to have in place, all the best practice to ensure that when we open a door, it has the right lock, it's made of the right material, it's been done through the right testing. So not just expose critical data and then think about how can we make it better or more secure. So it's pre and post production posture governance, which I think is the biggest pain point in the market today, as acceleration of development of APIs is just going. And the last part, which is the run part, is runtime protection. Your ability to baseline normal behavior, understand the business logic of your APIs, and be able to detect attackers as they're doing reconnaissance on your APIs, looking for these vulnerable points, and the ability to detect this abuse and mitigate it before it actually lead to an actual breach or an exploit of a vulnerability. In APIs, it's extremely complex because every API is unique. The API of one company and another companies are completely different. Even within the same company are completely different. So this is where we really differ across all three, but specifically in runtime protection. We patented the technology already 7 years ago. It's public out there in Google Patents. And it's all about using ML with our big data lake that really analyze massive amount of information to really train the models of what's normal behavior looks like, not for any API, for your API specifically. And once we detect a deviation from this normal behavior, we can actually distinguish between anomalous behavior that is non-malicious or anomalous behavior that is malicious. And this is the key thing here because most companies think about it as anomaly detection, right? Anomaly detection for me, it's a lot of noise, a lot of things that SOC teams don't want to handle, right? And I think this difference between malicious anomalies versus non-malicious anomalies is huge. We did the stats and the research, and we found that over 99% of anomalies are non-malicious. So the ability to distinguish and see the bigger picture. So when you get an alert, this is a real alert and shows you the entire life cycle of an attack. Impact tremendously your ability to mitigate them. On the other end, if you just have anomalies or it's just you're going to be flooded with alerts, which to me is equal to no alerts, right? So I think that's from a product standpoint, and I have a lot to expand there. But I think for more a mindset standpoint or approach, what I really kind of worked hard at Salt to create is that we are not just a solution provider. We see ourselves as a partner. And there is a big difference when it comes to the operations to what is a partner versus a solution. And very quickly, we realized that this category is new for most companies. What is API security? What should we do? What should we do first? How do we implement it, right? What's the right approach, and so on and so forth. So many companies take the approach of, hey, let's give you a solution. We'll demo it, we'll implement, and then, it's kind of your problem, Mr. Customer. And we believe that in a partnership, which means to provide the know-how, the training, how to implement. You don't have security standards, we will provide you security standards. We'll help you to design them. We kind of take the full approach from solution to services to know-how, the training, to essentially help you build a program, which is the end goal for the customer, versus just provide a solution and then go to the next customer. So this is really impact tremendously the structure of our organizations, what we do with resource, what do we invest in. Given the early phase of the market in the category, we believe as someone that created the space and kind of led it in research and innovation, we have to be the partner that helps you to implement that successfully and not just give you a platform and then, it's your issue.
Nice. Well, it's so valuable. And I'm intrigued by your AI and ML based approach to API threat detection and prevention. But put yourself in the shoes of the customer. What does it mean for them in terms of their, user experience, their workload, and how do you see them benefiting from this technology?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I typically, on a personal level, I hate in one side using AI ML because I feel it's been abused in the industry a lot. They can do something very little with ML, and they say ML very quickly, and I think it's kind of damaging the reputation of companies that making a massive use of ML in a real way to really provide true value to the customers. So let me tell you how we are using it. What's the the core advantages or differentiators that we created within our platform, core IP, more like to say. Um, so what we do, we inspect API traffic and we extract hundreds of behavioral attributes from this traffic. How the user interact with your APIs, what type of data they're getting, how often they're getting this data, kind of a lot of like hundreds of those, and we train our models in our big data continuously to baseline what is normal behavior. We're not taking this one, like traffic volumes or something very niche and we baseline using ML. We actually have a lot of different algorithms for different behavioral attributes to know what is normal behavior in your APIs, which is radically different than any other APIs, right?
Mm.
Give you a quick example. If you have a bank account, right, or banking app, you might be able to view stock data, right, to see what's changed in the market, in NASDAQ, and so on. And it's public to everyone. But if you look at your accounts transfer, this is something private to you. So knowing that this data is public to a lot of users, or the users of the bank, versus this information is just accessible to you and it's private, makes a huge difference if you see a lot of data of the private one being stand out versus the public one, right? It's just a very naive example. And you have thousands of those examples just within a single app. So we
Mm.
really baseline, really understand, so we can actually accurately detect any type of business logic abuse, which is the most common type of vulnerabilities in APIs. So this is the IP that we built. It was very hard and long journey because ML is good as the data you feed it with, right? So we have years and years of hundreds of customers' data. And I think this is where we uh, really, I think just in the last couple of years, we really got to this maturity phase where our ML models are extremely mature. On the flip side, if you're not a true SaaS company and if you deploy it like on-prem as an example, these things impact your ability to have a mature ML because you essentially, you have islands. You don't have the big brain that actually process all this information from all of your customers that they can benefit
Mm.
because the attacks are not very different, right? Across customers. So you want to have this advantage of training your MLs across all the data so you can benefit from other customers being attacked. So when these attack methods used against you, you want that to be detected and used in your favor if you're a customer.
That's a wonderful approach. And you do a ton of innovation beyond building the platform. It looks like you're doing a lot of security research and discovery, identifying vulnerabilities, sharing insights with the industry. Tell us about your team and the work they're doing there.
Absolutely. So we founded Salt Labs. So this is a research
Mm.
entity, the most advanced in the world. I'm proud to say that we found the most vulnerabilities in the world, by far,
Oh,
by
wow.
more than anyone else. We publish everything in a technical blog. We go all the way. It's not marketing fluff. It goes all the way to the abuse, the vulnerability, like all the way to the nitty-gritty details, but also like a very easy to understand explanation of what happened in the biggest plans in the world. Unfortunately, most of them we cannot publish, but so it's just a handful that we publish. And the reason why we are doing this research and doing that just for the community is everything goes back to what I said earlier about being a partner. If we are the one that created the category and create the space and the first solution to market, we see ourselves responsible to educate and to provide our knowledge to the community so they know what are the most latest and greatest API attacks, what type of vulnerabilities they need to be protected of, right? We are the knowledge. If we are the partner, we need to be the knowledge base where if you want to learn about API security and the latest and greatest, you need to come to us. So this is why we decided to invest in a dedicated arm that just finding and publishing critical vulnerabilities to advance the space as a whole. So this is the reasoning behind it. And of course, it feeds in straight to our product. How can you build an API security product that detects the latest and greatest attack if you don't know and understand deeply how they look like and you're just playing catch up after what you see in
Mm.
the market? So we prefer to be proactive versus being reactive.
I think most would answer proactive, but traditionally, security has been an afterthought with many developers, sort of an add on or a bolt on or something. So for organizations interested in enhancing their API security, how do you engage with them? Like, at what process? What does it typically look like, and what are the challenges or plans that need to be put in place? At the beginning of a project versus the end.
So I think first of all is need to understand their like as a customer, I would like to understand my exposure, right? What type of risk do I have? If I have any services exposed, do I have any mobile apps, any web apps, anything that I would ask myself if the information, the data that I'm exposing through these APIs will get exploited, how much damage that would be for my company.
Mm,
And if the answer is it's extremely impactful, and because we have a lot of user information and sensitive information, so on and so forth, so definitely there is a big risk there, and I think to learn there is depends which route you want to go. I'll start with OWASP API Top 10 is a great starting point. It's not the end of it; it's the beginning, but just to get you familiar with what are the type of attacks, what are the type of common vulnerabilities. There is a lot of our technical blogs about different type of vulnerabilities, and if you want to have something more maybe something more easier. Obviously, we always love to meet with individuals that are interested in the space to teach and educate about what's important about API security and things to consider. And we always take the approach of we will give you all the resources you want if you want to do something yourself, or
mm,
we are here to partner, not to sell. So we give you a lot of collateral, a lot of things you can do yourself as much as possible. As many resources, if you have a lot of resources and you want to try to build a lot of things yourself, we'll give you all the know-how
mm.
of the best you can get by yourself. If you want more than that, of course, we're always happy to help. This is why we created a company, to solve a problem. But happy to talk with anyone that has a concern or risk regarding API security.
Oh, fantastic. Talk about your customers a bit. You have many customers, many case studies. I'm sure many you can't talk about, some you can. Any you care to highlight, or any success stories worth sharing?
Yeah, so actually, top of my head, I'm not sure that I need to check what publicly I can disclose or not disclose. There's a bunch in our website are public, so you can go take a look and actually see a lot of case studies, logos, and so on. We are typically partnering with companies, with larger companies, mid to large companies, and innovative companies in general. That maybe APIs play a crucial role from the earlier
Mm,
stages. Um, we are in the hundreds of customers, really in the large enterprises, primarily in the US and in Europe, but also in other geographies. So this is not something we started yesterday. This is something we started already. We patented in 2016 and we co-founded the company in 2018. So we're definitely many years in the space and really understand just beyond the technology is how you implement successfully the technology in a large
mm,
enterprise, which to me it's even the bigger challenge, right? It's buying a solution, it's easy, you know, how to implement it, how to triage it internally, how to operationalize it, and get the value that you bought this solution for. To me, this is the biggest blocker for companies, right? Everything can look great in a demo on a small scale proof of value, but I think the biggest blocker that I see companies, and we see them coming to us after doing attempts with in other approaches or other tools, is they couldn't fully operationalize it, right? They couldn't really
mm,
get to remediate the things that have been brought up because you have different teams, different owners, different teams owning different apps, different APIs. So I think I encourage companies always to think about just not always, you want to get the best solution, but what more important, you want to get the best partner because solution is just a component. You want to get the partner that really will help you and that you judge to help you about how you implement the entire program successfully and can give you the proper support for it.
fantastic. Uh, any thoughts on API security trends, opportunities this year and next? What do you see as evolving the fastest? And maybe what's any roadmap items you can share? Where do you see yourself heading this year on the development side?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of show a couple of things more what's happening, what we see happening in the industry that kind of
Mm,
accelerating API security issues, and also what we're doing as a company. So I touched on it on the beginning, but I think this is a crucial point. APIs, we've been growing rapidly with agile development, but we see now a next level of growth with generative AI. Actually, we see more and more code is being AI generated. The ability just to type a line of code and say, "Write me an API, code me an API to do
Mm.
X, Y, and Z," and it's just being created. It means that the growth of API is going to go through another exponential phase, and which create the huge pain point for companies for posture governance. This is why we worked on it and launched it, is because we initially primarily focused on runtime protection, but because of the rapid pace of releasing APIs to production with generative AI, and it's already really bad. Like it's good for innovation, but for security standpoint, it's really bad. It's going to get a lot worse in the next year or two, probably even this year, because it's been heavily been adopted because of the advantages for innovation. But what it means that tons of APIs are being thrown over the fence without any security controls, without really to govern them. They've been implement changes. So without your ability to put the gate and govern the security standards across all your APIs pre and post production, you'll basically think about it. If the company is a building, you are opening every day a new window, a new door, and everybody can open whatever door they want. It could be without a lock, with a lock, whoever can enter. So the first part is really discover and govern. So when you release something to the market or to your customers, you know that it's meeting a certain threshold of security, and from there you can create protection standards. You can improve, but this is the absolute minimum, and this is why we launched this and going to invest heavily in posture governance, because we believe, and it seems like the market believe as well, this is the biggest pain point that can lead to the highest ROI in the shortest time.
Well said. Um, any just a side note, any advice to aspiring cybersecurity professionals, young people in the field who are just starting their cybersecurity career, or entrepreneurs like yourself who are looking at startups? Not an easy task. What pearls of wisdom would you give
Mhm.
those folks in the industry?
Yeah, so I would say for young professionals, I would say be extremely curious and learn. There is so much
Mm,
knowledge out there. Companies like
mm,
ourselves and many other companies are publishing a lot of like technical material, knowledge on a lot of their space to educate. I want to be just very curious, hungry, learn a lot. There is so much you can do just
mm.
free online, and just learn from case studies. I mean, like breaches, vulnerabilities research. You just get so much once you understand how companies getting breached and what happens on vulnerabilities. You get a very good perspective about tools you would need, processes, best practices, seeing lectures. So I'll be extremely, extremely curious, and I think that leads to great things. Everything else follows. I think for entrepreneurs in general is really put the customer at the center. I think it
Mm.
helps you to make very good decisions if you are focusing on value and not just on optics and marketing. I think you make the right decisions for your customers, and I think once you do that, in the long term, that will lead to tremendous success, right? If you focus on short-term optics and not the core IP that you build and core value, that lasts a quarter, 2 quarters, a year, but you can't build a company like that if you don't have consistent value that you're providing to your customers. So for us, it's all about what value, how can we invest more in generating more value to our customers, and staying extremely close to your customers and listen to them versus try to think that you know everything. So this is the advice for entrepreneurs.
Well, wonderful advice. I hope folks will take note. Finally, any travel or trips coming up? Anything on your radar personally worth mentioning? I'm sure you'll be at all the shows during the year. Maybe we can meet at RSA or DEF CON or one of the many events. But what are you looking forward to personally?
Um, to be honest, I'm kind of living on an airplane. To be honest, living on a suitcase. So I'm going just all around. to be honest, from the U.S., East Coast, West Coast, Israel, Tel Aviv, where we have our a big part of our engineering. So in Europe,
On
so
the
it's
road. That's right.
yeah,
Management by flying around. That's, I know it's a par for the course these days. Well, thanks so much for joining. Thanks for all the insights shared. I think you have a tremendous opportunity ahead of you. And thanks for watching, everyone. Reach out to Salt Security. They have great content, lots of educational content on their social handles and webpage. Thanks so much, Roy. Take care.
Thank you very much for having me.